So, picture this. It's exactly 5:30 p.m. on, just a seemingly ordinary Tuesday.
Right?
And a primary school teacher in a pretty remote part of India logs onto a brand new Airtel wireless internet connection.
Just a standard evening routine, right?
Exactly. I mean, on the surface, she's just a student logging in for a 1-hour virtual typing and administration class.
Yeah.
But if you zoom out,
Yeah.
that single perfectly timed hour was actually the catalyst for this massive multi-generational machine clicking into gear. Like an hour that would ultimately help fund end-of-life hospice care for hundreds of elderly orphans.
Oh, wow. I know, it sounds like the plot of a sprawling novel, but it is entirely real.
It really does.
Yeah, and we're unpacking a deeply personal journal entry today for this deep dive. It was published online under the title, Today's Note to Myself and My Little Bird 2026-0626.
Catchy title.
Right. But personal journals are just invaluable to us. They strip away the grand, polished narratives of
They
history.
give you the actual ground level view.
Exactly. They show us the raw mechanics of how massive societal shifts, like the rise of the global gig economy or the collapse of traditional elder care, how they actually land in a single person's daily life.
Well, our mission for this deep dive is to map out that exact collision for you. We're going to trace how a casual diary entry about setting up an internet connection unravels into this incredible saga.
It's a huge saga.
It really is. It's got interrupted spiritual renunciation, century-old family legacies, and just a wildly visionary business model.
So let's start with that 5:30 p.m. class.
Yeah, was it?
The author notes that they just got an Airtel Air connection installed, which is, hyper-modern, high-speed, wireless 5G internet reaching into areas that previously might have struggled with basic connectivity.
Right, bleeding edge tech for that area.
But then in the very next sentence, the author mentions scheduling this new student's first class at precisely 5:30 p.m., specifically because it was an auspicious hour.
I love that. The contrast there is just so striking.
It really is. You have the invisible waves of a 5G network intersecting with this ancient astrological practice of choosing an auspicious hour to make sure a new endeavor is successful.
It's like firing up a particle accelerator, but making sure you consult a lunar calendar before hitting the power button.
That's a great way to put it.
And the author lays out the rest of the teaching schedule, which is essentially just a giant jigsaw puzzle.
Oh, a total nightmare to organize.
Yeah. So we have this new student who is a private primary school teacher, slotted in from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. And then another student, Vanilla, took a 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. block.
And that timing is super specific.
It is. The author notes that 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. is standard for the housewives taking these virtual assistant classes.
Yeah.
But working women, they generally grab the 5 a.m. slots or the 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. slots.
Right. And if you look closely at those hours, you are really seeing the invisible architecture of a woman's daily life in India.
Oh, absolutely.
These aren't random preferences, The scheduling mechanics here perfectly map the unseen domestic and professional burdens these women carry.
Because a housewife doesn't pick 10 a.m. because she likes sleeping in.
Not at all. She picks 10 a.m. because from 5 a.m. to 9:30 a.m., she is trapped in a whirlwind of domestic labor.
Cooking, cleaning, all of it.
Exactly. Cooking meals from scratch, getting children bathed and off to school, just managing the immediate needs of the household. So only when the house empties out can she carve out 60 minutes for her own upskilling.
And honestly, the working women have it arguably worse.
Oh, for sure.
Because if your 9 to 5 is already spoken for, your only options for personal advancement are to, sacrifice your sleep by logging on at 5 a.m.
Brutal. Or to extend your exhaustion by studying at 7 p.m. after a full day of work. And the author is navigating around this immense structural bottleneck just to teach them how to do remote digital work.
Which brings up a really critical question.
Yeah.
Why is the author suddenly managing this exhausting puzzle of students and schedules in the first place?
That's the twist. Right, because until the very recent past, this author had given up teaching entirely. They had systematically dismantled their business to just walk away from the material world.
Yeah, the journal details this grand sweeping life plan. The author intended to leave the city of Rajamundry, dedicate themselves entirely to yoga research, and move into the Santi ashram at Thotapalli Hills.
And this wasn't a whim?
No, they didn't just casually consider this. The text says they sold off their possessions. They officially closed down their office.
Wow.
Yeah, they even told their past students, women they had already trained to be virtual assistants, that they were on their own now. The author describes this whole process as almost like taking sannyasa.
Right, and for context, taking sannyasa is the fourth and final stage of life in Hindu philosophy.
It's a huge deal.
It is absolute renunciation. You sever your ties to wealth, property, business, and even family.
So you're just done.
Basically, yeah. The entire mechanism of your daily life shifts from external achievement to internal spiritual liberation. It is effectively a social death and a spiritual rebirth.
Okay, I have to pause on the mechanics of that because the timeline is just brutal.
It really is.
The author severs all these ties, closes the business, empties their life of all material obligation to prepare for this profound transition.
And then?
And then the corona pandemic hits.
Yeah.
The global lockdown just freezes everything. The journal states that the Antaryami stopped taking inmates and continually postponed the author's request to move in.
Talk about bad timing.
I mean, imagine you are the author. You have systematically erased your identity as a business owner and a teacher. You've closed your bank accounts, essentially. But the monastery doors are locked.
You were just stuck.
You are trapped in this bizarre limbo. What do you even do?
It is a profound psychological paradox, honestly. I mean, the pandemic forced millions of people into holding patterns, but for this author, it halted a spiritual erasure mid-process.
That is wild.
Right. Because the ashram committee couldn't give them a move-in date, the author needed a physical place to exist in a world they had just officially resigned from.
Because they could just vanish into thin air.
Exactly. So the sheer necessity of simply having a place to stay during the pandemic led the author to pivot. They moved to a branch of their family's old age homes in a place called Malavaram in 2019.
Just as a stopgap.
Yeah, the logic was that they could quietly acquaint themselves with the trust's activities, do some basic administrative work, and just wait for the world to open back up.
But that decision acts as this massive gravitational pull, dragging the author back into a sprawling, century-old familial legacy.
It really does.
The journal shifts here from a personal diary into almost like a historical archive. We learn that these old-age homes are part of a much larger trust called the Kasturba Mahila Samajam.
And the roots of this organization are incredibly deep. It was founded by the author's grandmother, Burlagata Varagavama,
What a legacy.
and her close friend, Charla Susela. And the initial spark actually came from a man named Charla Ganapathy Sastry, who was friends with the author's great-grandfather, Udagiri Viraju. The journal notes that this great-grandfather and his brothers owned a highly reputed restaurant chain, which gave the family significant wealth and political influence in the town of Nittedavul.
The mechanism of that influence is really worth exploring, I think. A reputed restaurant chain in the early to mid-20th century isn't just a business.
No, not at all.
It's like the central nervous system for a town. It generates cash flow, yes, but more importantly, it generates immense social capital.
Oh, absolutely. Politicians, business leaders, everyday citizens, they all gather there.
Exactly. The great-grandfather built that network, but it was the grandmother who weaponized that social capital, translating restaurant wealth into an institution for women's empowerment and social reform.
Which is just an incredible transmutation of resources.
It's like a sprawling, multi-generational novel where wealth from a restaurant chain is funneled into a century of social reform.
And a 4-generation friendship. The author mentions that Charla Susela's daughters, 2 sisters named Vidula and Rudula, actually chose never to marry so they could dedicate their entire lives to this social service.
Wow. Talk about dedication.
Eventually, they started an old age home specifically in their mother's name. The author describes the 2 families as functioning more like relatives than just friends.
You know, I did notice a slight friction in the timeline the author presents here, which reveals a lot about how memory works.
Oh, the dates.
Yeah. Early in this section, the author notes in parentheses that the Kasturba Mahila Samajam started 8 years ago. But practically in the next sentence, they mention that the grandmother managed the trust for 50 years, followed by the mother managing it for another 10 years.
Yeah, the math is definitely conflicting there.
Right. You can't have 60 years of management for an organization founded 8 years ago.
Exactly. But rather than dismissing it as an error, I think it's a beautiful artifact of human memory. Well, when writing a deeply personal journal, we rarely fact-check ourselves. The 8 years ago might refer to a specific legal incorporation, a renaming, or a new building initiative.
Ah, that makes sense.
While the 60 years of management reflects the emotional, lived reality of the family's unbroken service.
So the author is sitting in this Malavaram branch, surrounded by the weight of this 60-year family legacy, just waiting out the pandemic. They are doing administrative work.
Right.
But then their previous life, the one they tried so hard to renounce, catches up to them.
It always does.
About 3 years ago, Vidula, one of the dedicated Charla sisters, passed away. This left her sister Mrujula shouldering the entire responsibility of the trust. And during this really chaotic period of transition, the author's past students started reaching out.
Yeah, these are the women the author had trained in virtual assistants since way back in 2003.
Over a decade ago.
Yeah. Their children had grown up, their domestic burdens had shifted slightly, and they urgently needed to generate income again. So they began persuading the author to return to teaching.
And the author's response to this is fascinating because it completely redefines how we think about work.
It really is a paradigm shift.
The author writes, "I am not just their trainer or employer, but a guardian. And in Indian terminology, I am their guru, guiding them in many matters." They specifically note that they guide these women in all Chaturveda Purushartha, which are the 4 aims of human life: Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha.
To understand the gravity of that statement, we need to break down those 4 aims.
Let's hear it.
Dharma is your moral duty and righteous path. Artha is economic prosperity and the pursuit of material security.
Okay.
Kama is pleasure, emotional fulfillment, and joy. And moksha is ultimate spiritual liberation.
I really have to challenge the reality of that dynamic, though.
Okay, lay it on me.
Because if we look at the modern gig economy, especially in the West, it is notoriously transactional. You complete a digital task, you get paid a piece rate, and the app logs you out. If a Western CEO announced that they were not just an employer, but a spiritual guru responsible for their independent contractors' moral duty and ultimate spiritual liberation.
People would lose their minds.
Exactly. They would immediately call it toxic, or at least a massive overstepping of professional boundaries. How does this actually function without becoming exploitative?
That friction you are feeling is the exact difference between a transactional economy and a relational one.
Okay, unpack that.
In Western corporate structures, we build hard walls between the personal and professional to prevent exploitation, like you said. But the guru framework operates on absolute holistic responsibility.
I see.
The author doesn't view these women as disposable digital labor. The author feels a profound moral obligation, Dharma, to pull these women out of financial insecurity.
So it's duty-bound.
Exactly. By teaching them digital skills, the author provides them with artha, material wealth. This allows the women to support their families and find stability, which hits kama.
And moksha.
Right. It is all conducted within a framework that respects their ultimate spiritual journey, moksha. It isn't a boss demanding spiritual loyalty. It's an elder taking familial responsibility for a community's survival.
That reframes the entire operation.
Yeah.
It completely explains why the author couldn't just ignore their pleas.
They literally couldn't.
Luckily, around this time, the granddaughters of Charla Susila retired and were actually able to step in and help Mrujula run the trust.
Which was huge for the author.
Right. It freed the author from their administrative duties at the ashram. So they moved to cover, set up that wireless Airtel connection we talked about at the start, and restarted their old company, Vistara Marketing, to aggressively promote virtual assistants again.
What? And there's always a but. The author's renewed mission to help these women quickly collided with a terrifying crisis back at the family's old age home.
Yes. The trust hit a massive financial wall.
It was bad.
The journal notes they fell so severely short of funds that they actually had to resign from administrating a few branches, including the Malavaram branch, where the author had literally just been staying.
The math behind elder care, particularly in a charitable setting, is just unforgiving.
It really is.
The author states that the trust currently houses 300 aged orphans across 3 branches. And to merely maintain these residents in basic ideal conditions, the trust needs at least 15 lakh.
Let's contextualize that number for you. 15 lakh is 1.5 million rupees.
Yeah.
In rural or semi-urban India, where a typical starting salary for a basic job might hover around, say, 15,000 to 20,000 rupees a month, 1.5 million rupees is a staggering monumental sum of money.
It's an astronomical overhead.
And that is just the baseline operational cost for food and basic shelter.
And he also points out an even darker reality here. If the trust wants to actually provide specialized care, specifically palliative and hospice care for residents nearing the end of their lives, that 1.5 million rupee twist line doesn't just double.
Oh, no.
It triples or quadruples.
Because end-of-life care is an entirely different medical beast.
Completely different.
You aren't just providing a bed and 3 meals anymore. You're suddenly talking about oxygen machines, 247 specialized nursing staff, really expensive pain management medications like morphine, and sanitized medical environments.
Right, for 300 residents.
Exactly. The cost scales exponentially, and the trust simply didn't have it.
This is really the crucible moment of the entire journal entry.
The turning point.
Yeah, the author is standing between two distinct, massive societal failures. On one side, you have a network of rural housewives and teachers who are structurally locked out of the traditional economy and desperately need income.
Right.
And on the other side, 300 destitute elders who are facing the end of their lives without the funding necessary for dignified medical care.
And rather than choosing one problem to solve, the author engineers a way to make the two problems solve each other.
It's brilliant.
It is. They create what they call Project Antaryami. The author has been promoting this concept since May 2025, and it is built on three deeply interconnected pillars.
Let's walk through them.
So first, there is the Antaryami Academy, which trains the women in virtual assistants. Second, there is the Antaryami VA network, which basically functions as the agency employing these trained women to do digital gig work.
And the third pillar is the Antaryami Ashram. This facility is specifically designed to accommodate the aged, orphaned, and destitute, with a huge focus on providing that prohibitively expensive palliative care.
The real genius of Project Antaryami is the financial engine connecting them, like a modern social startup.
Oh, totally.
The business model dictates that the ashram is entirely self-sufficient, funded directly by a revenue share from the academy and the VA network.
Think about the mechanics of this arbitrage, right?
Okay.
The VA network trains these women to provide administrative support, scheduling, and data management, likely for clients in urban centers or Western countries where the currency is much stronger.
So they're bringing in outside capital.
Exactly. The network charges the client a premium rate, pays the rural Indian woman a highly competitive local wage, granting her that crucial artha, or material security, and then funnels the surplus profit margins directly into the ashram.
It is a closed-loop ecosystem.
A totally closed loop.
So a rural housewife logs onto her computer at 10 a.m., completes a digital task for a client halfway across the world, and the margin from her labor buys pain medication for a dying elder in her own community.
That's incredible.
It takes the hyper-modern reality of global digital gig work and tethers it directly to the ancient, profound duty of caring for the elderly.
It's an incredibly robust response to a derailed life, if you think about it.
Yeah, because they didn't get to go to the monastery.
Right. The author couldn't retreat to a monastery to seek their own spiritual liberation, so they built a mechanism to generate material and spiritual liberation for hundreds of others simultaneously.
Bringing this all the way back to where we started, it completely changes how you read that opening paragraph.
It really does.
A diary note about an Airtel connection and a 5:30 p.m. typing class isn't just a mundane scheduling update.
No, it is the sound of the Antaryami engine turning over. It represents a derailed spiritual retirement being sublimated into a multi-generational legacy of social reform.
We see a person taking the ashes of their interrupted life plan, picking up the heavy responsibility of being a guru to their community, and designing a blueprint that leverages modern technology to solve a devastating human crisis.
It proves that the most impactful historical documents don't always come with official seals.
That's true.
Sometimes they're literally just notes we leave for ourselves while trying to figure out how to navigate the day.
Well, with that in mind, I want to leave you with a thought to mull over as you step back into your own daily routine. Consider the trajectory you are on right now. If an unavoidable, massive disruption suddenly dismantled your ultimate life plan tomorrow, leaving you with nothing but your current skills and your history, what kind of Project Antaryami could you engineer?
It's a heavy question.
How could you connect these seemingly unrelated struggles within your own community and build a closed loop of support? Think about what the blueprint in your own unwritten journal entry might look like.